welcome to the first ever deck build video for this channel. Um, Today we are going to go over a majority of what I run in my Yuriko the Tiger Shadow currently. There are a few cards that I am missing that I do still need to buy to fully make the CEDH. However, it does compete with top CEDH decks right now with its current build. Typically, I can win with this deck no later than turn 4. With that being said, uh, everybody who is heavily into the Magic scene knows about Yuriko, knows what she does. She's absolutely kind of crazy. The Commander Ninjutsu makes her really broken. Um, the great part about that, in my opinion, is you never have to pay the Commander tax ever with Commander Ninjutsu, which is really great for the deck. It makes it go a lot smoother, makes it run a lot smoother and a lot easier. Um, so with that being said, um, a lot of what she does requires a lot of ninjas to make her herself go off. Um, excuse me. Whenever a ninja you control deals combat damage to a player, reveal the top card of your library and put that card into your hand. Each opponent loses life equal to that card's mana value. So, what I do typically to trigger that, I have Tetsuko, who's Umezawa Fugitive. Creatures you control with power toughness 1 or less can't be blocked. So, most of the time, Yuriko will always get a trigger when Tetsuko's out. Then you also have things like Moth Dust Changeling, whose power and toughness are both 1. And it's a changeling, so it's a ninja trigger every time. Nozumi Prowler, which is a ninja with ninjutsu, which I'll dive into that a little bit more later. I have a lot of unblockables and stuff like that, flyers, etc. That typically I use to get these ninjutsu triggers off. Mistblade Shinobi. Another very good card in the deck. 1 cost ninjutsu, gets it out, and return a creature that player controls to its owner's hand when it deals combat damage. We have the Changeling Outcast. Again, counts as a ninja because it has Changeling. So, and it can't be blocked on its own. Super huge card to have to get some of those extra ninjutsu triggers. I'm sorry, not ninjutsu triggers. Extra ninja triggers from Yuriko. Then we have Moon Circuit Hacker, another ninja. One cost ninjutsu, a 2/1. So if I end up getting Tetsuko out, turn 2, a lot of this is just 3 ninja triggers, super fast. And then Thousand Face Shadow, another cheap flying ninja. Again, same thing with Tetsuko, makes it unblockable. Oroku, one of the newer cards I added to the deck very recently. It does count as a ninja, obviously, so it also gives you a little bit of draw. You don't necessarily need it. It doesn't have ninjutsu. It has sneak, which is essentially the same thing. Again, same thing with Tetsuko. 3/1, relatively easy to get it through. Now, the other 2 I have in here that are ninjas, Silver Fur Master, one of my favorites. Ninjutsu abilities activate, cost 1 less to activate, and other ninjas and rogue creatures you control get +1/+1. um, which typically kind of helps with getting Yuriko through. Um, if I don't have Tetsuko out, then this one also, whenever a ninja or rogue deals combat damage, credit treasure token, free mana. Um, so a lot of this is all going back to what Yuriko does herself. With the combat triggers happening with dealing damage, a lot of what makes this deck go is Tetsuko and the ninjutsu abilities. So with those ninjutsu abilities, you have to have things that cannot be blocked. So Ginger Brute, Slither Blade, Triton Shore Stalker. What was the other? I thought I had another one in here, but I don't. And then I have the flyers that can't be blocked. Obviously, you have to have the Ornithopter in here. That's a free cast flyer you can get out any turn, especially if you get it early turn 1. And then turn 2 you can get your Yuriko out. It makes this deck go quick. And then another Memnite 0 cost. Typically, again, you get it out turn 1. A lot of people aren't going to be ready for it. And from my experience, even playing against other CEDH decks, they can't handle being hit with a Yuriko trigger right off the bat. So a lot of these unblockables are huge. The hard part about these are getting them out without them getting counted. Because everybody knows when you pull out Yuriko and they see any of these unblockables, they say, oh shit, I'm about to get smacked in the mouth. So a lot of the unblockables tend to get countered. But that's why Tetsuko is in here as a backup. Now, I'm going to deep dive more into the cards I have in here to help with the actual trigger Yuriko gives, to help with the damage and kind of setting up those high damage plays. A lot of that is setting those high damage plays up is very key in this deck. So Sensei's Divining Top is probably one of my favorite cards. You pay 1, look at the top 3 cards of your library, put them back in any order. Same kind of concept as Scroll Rack. Pay 1, tap, exile any number of cards from your hand face down, put that many cards from the top of your library into your hand, then look at the exiled cards and put them on top of your library in any order. So let's say you have a full hand, you get Scroll Rack out, turn 1. You somehow end up with all of your mana rocks, you crack it early, you get let's say one of those 0 cost flyers, the 0 cost flyer out, and boom, now you just set up your entire top of your library how you want it to get a big Yuriko trigger right off the bat. Same kind of concept with Limb Duel's Vault and Diabolic Vision. Limb Duels is my personal favorite in this deck. 2 cost, instant, so you can do it at any time. What's really great about that is once you go into combat and you're already swinging, you've got those attacks through, you can then sit here and Limb Duel's Vault. So now you're setting up the top of your library to hit those high cost cards that you have in the deck, to deal, you know, 30-40 damage right off the bat, with your first, second Yuriko triggers. And we'll dive into those here in a moment. I would also say I could throw Bola Citadel in here, kind of, um, because you can look at the top card of your library. You can kind of play it however you want, with that, and then, um, typically you don't use the last ability on this card just because you never have 10 permanents to sacrifice. Um, a lot of what this card is for is to just, I mean, you do have the capability to win the game with casting cards from the top of your library, especially if you somehow get Bola Citadel out. Um, I would also put that in the category of six. That's 6 mana. That's 6 damage from Yuriko. So, with all of that being said, you kind of get the idea on how to operate the deck, um, and what cards are really key to, kind of get going with the deck. So, I want to show you guys now how I make sure these things happen. Obviously, have to have your counter spells. So I run a lot of counter spells in this deck, as blue should. Especially in a CEDH level deck, you want the Force of Negations, Pact of Negations, Fierce Guardianships, Force of Will, Mana Drains, Flare of Denial, especially because, I have these two in here. Um, they're nice to have. However, the problem with Flutterstorm and an offer you can't refuse, and one of the reasons I'm considering replacing those for other large cost spells, um, to boost the damage and whatnot, um, is especially if you're turn 2, turn 3, you're not gonna have the extra mana to pay to cast an offer you can't refuse or Flutterstorm. That 1 mana makes a big difference. Now, things like Flare of Denial, Fierce Guardianship, Force of Will, Pact of Negation, and Force of Negation. Super great. Force of Negation is not as good in this deck. However, the Force of Will, Fierce Guardianship, and Pact of Negation are probably some of the best. Especially if you have, let's say you have Force of Will and Pact of Negation both in your hand. Um, the first one you're going to use is Force of Will. Clearly, obviously, probably the best counter in all of Magic right now. And then if somebody still tends or ends up having another counter spell, then you will use that Pact of Negation. Because if you're about to win the game, that 5 mana doesn't matter. You won't have a next turn. The game will be over. So a lot of these counter spells are great. Mana Drain, same kind of concept of these two, especially if it goes later, than turn 3 or 4, which most of the time in CEDH you're not gonna see. So, you want to run a lot of those free kind of casting counter spells. So now that we've dove into the way the deck works, I'm going to show some of the util kind of artifacts and spells I have in here. We have your typical Psych Rift. Oh, that light not sitting well for me. So you have your typical Psych Rift. Um, most of the time you won't use this in this deck in CEDH, but it is there just in case. It's again one of those things where, oh my god, this game is going to turn 5 now. I have plenty of fucking mana. I'm gonna overload this, get rid of everybody's shit, just kill them. Then I got Cursed Totem in here, because if you can get Cursed Totem out turn 2, turn 1, activated abilities not being able to be activated are huge. Especially with a lot of newer CEDH decks I've seen, a lot of them require activated abilities on creatures. So Cursed Totem is one of the big kind of FU cards. And then obviously you have ooh, your mana rocks and whatnot. I am missing two mana rocks out of this deck that I still need to get. Um which they will replace other cards I have in the deck that are kind of placeholders right now. I'm not gonna go over those. Um the other ones I'm missing, I believe, are Mox Diamond and I believe it was Mox Diamond and let's see, make sure Mox Diamond, which is gonna be a very expensive card to get. And then I believe it was Chrome Mox. Chrome Mox is the other one I believe I want to put in this deck. Um, Obviously you can't run any of the Mox Pearl, Mox Sapphire, any of those. Those are banned. Um, yes, the Chrome Mox and the Mox Diamond are the two I'm really going after. I also want to add a Mox Opal at some point. Mox Diamond is way down the road. Obviously, it's going to be very expensive, so that is not something I'm going to be able to afford right off the bat. The Chrome Mox and Mox Opals aren't as expensive. Um, they are, I think, both $100 a piece. So those will be going in the deck at in the near future. Obviously Dark Ritual, your typical Soul Ring. Currently as a placeholder, I'm using Arcane Signet. Um, until I can get those other two Moxes to replace that and uh replace some of the other placeholders I have in the deck currently. So you want to be able to get your combos, right? Big way to do that, tutors. Vampiric, Mystical, and Demonic. Those are the three I run, the only ones I need in the deck, to be honest with you. Um, because Mystical helps me get a piece of a two card combo. Um, and then the Vampiric and Demonic will help me get uh the finishing pieces of a five card combo, technically five card, quote unquote. Um, that essentially will win me the game in a turn or two, usually. However, that five card combo is always a fallback plan. I don't like to have to use that one if I don't have to. So these two cards, this one in particular, is very expensive right now. Again, uh, I grabbed it just for the art. It's beautiful. Um, The regular demonic tutors are much more affordable and very easy to run. So those three are the only three tutors I run in the deck currently. That could change in the future, but we shall see. So remember how I said earlier, in order to get value out of her trigger, you have to have those high cost cards. So a lot of that, obviously, you saw the Bolas Citadel earlier, so we'll kind of move that off to the side. A lot of that is very high cost spells. 12, 12, 8. This one technically counts as 10 because it does count both. Um, 15, 7. And what's nice about Temporal Mastery is if you happen to, oh, I just drew this, Miracle cost, extra turn, cool. Omniscience at 10. Draco at 16. Enter the Infinite at 12. Time Stretch at 10. Temporal Trespass at 11. Dig Through Time at 8. All of these are meant to be in here to get those Yuriko triggers and kill your opponents fast. I've had it where I was able to have Draco, Shadow Immortality, and Scion of Draco or Cauldron of Eternity all hit by turn 3 and everyone is dead. Because you're hitting just based off of these two alone. You're hitting for 31 damage right there. Each player's take 31 damage, and then if you hit any of these other high cost spells, it's game. So a lot of these are literally just here for Yuriko triggers. Bola Citadel is here for utility, but also for those Yuriko triggers. The last thing I'm gonna go over is the combos I do use in the deck. The game finishers, obviously, you're very obvious and normal. Demonic Consultation and Thassa's Oracle. And then this also uses Thassa's Oracle. So usually what you do is you cast your Doomsday, you go get these 4, and then a counter spell. Return 2 islands, draw 2 cards. Then you got your Get Probe, pay 2 life, look at target player's hand, draw a card. And then your Agademon's Awakening will essentially be there as a fallback plan. Thassa's Oracle with Agademon's Awakening still on in your library. If this gets countered, you usually have a counter spell to try to save the Thassa's Oracle ability. If not, then your Agademon's Awakening, bring stuff back from the graveyard, and do what you can. Otherwise, you're kind of screwed. So yeah, a lot of that is the deck. Again, if there was anything you had any questions about, leave a comment below, and we can or I can let you know my thoughts, or if you have any other recommendations or thoughts on Yuriko herself, feel free to leave a comment below and I will discuss that more with you there. Don't forget to like and subscribe the video. I will be dropping a lot more deck tech videos in the near future, along with dropping more gaming content on YouTube very soon. I will see you guys in the next video. Peace and love. Later.